Hello there, it's another episode of the CyberDudes podcast. I am still Robin Thornton, still reclined because actually I've realized it's more comfy recording this way. Sitting normally is still Omar Sangarima. How are you doing, Omar?
Still the same anxiety monkey I was the last time we talked about posture. So how are
Anxiety
you?
monkey. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm all right. I'm broken. Yesterday was a busy day in the yard. So yeah.
Nice.
And
It's the
also
season,
then
the
tis the
prep.
season.
Yeah.
Is the season. Well, also I'm dealing with the hangover of not having managed to clear the litany of leaves last year in
Mm-hmm.
time for when it started raining, and then they get all soggy, and then it's very difficult to move them anyway. But no, that was yeah, fun doing that yesterday. Also looked like a complete idiot because my neighbour's yard's like completely clear, like absolutely spotless, and mine's just absolutely littered. So yeah, and then with an hour less sleep last night, it's not helping
No,
the being broken.
it's got me on my ass too. I feel you.
Yes, it's delayed recording, but never mind. Let us get into it. What has been baking your noodle this week in the cyber world?
Surprise, we're still fucking up when it comes to Russia and also just the Doge stuff. So I'll come at a little bighorn it, right? I'll surround it and then we'll take our prize in the center. So starting off from the wonderful, I love adding sources. So when I found this, what seems like an online news source from straight up Kosovo, Telegraphy, they're complaining in a shocker to no one that they think Russia
About the
messed with their
search?
elections. Yeah, like, oh no,
yeah,
darn
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh
well,
no.
Russia's
Anyway,
been meddling with everybody's elections. They've been messing around in the
German.
Romanians' elections. They've been messing around in the Germans, in the Moldovans. So
Yes.
what's one more messing around with the Kosovos?
And why it stuck out to me was the main reason going, listen, Albania is not Kosovo. It's two countries, one nation. It's how I've heard it described, but still distinct borders. Want to honor and respect that because that was hard fought, as we all know. That region was a powder keg and still kind of is. But if you have a supposed ally of Putin and Donald Trump saying, hey, Albania will take the 2 million Gazans that we're just going to take out of there to turn Gaza into, Trump Middle East. Exactly. Very dystopian vibes. Like that aspect to it just really sets me like, okay, all these movies I've seen where, the rich are hanging out and the poor are in the salt mines. However, follow me here. So Albania is going to take the 2 million Gazans supposedly. Kosovo, I would say, it's not a stretch to say it's pretty buddy close up, involved in a situationship with Albania. And here you have Russia just straight sticking its cyber dick in its elections indiscriminately. As you said, there is no election that takes place that Putin and co do not at least raise an eyebrow and hammer out the political ramifications therein. It's a roundabout way to say we really shouldn't stop any cyber operations. Secretary of Defense, you're bonkers. But this is a latest example of and the long-term effects, right? This story is talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 years of just concerted fuckitude on the Kremlin's part.
I mean, it's part of the course, isn't it? Really, you do remind me though, with regard to that whole Hexa thing. There's a guy on Instagram, Anti-Prophet, who's kind of got this sort of like funny, kind of marshmallowy looking mask to hide his identity, but he's been going on a real sort of like anti-Trump crusade at the moment. And obviously, a lot of the comments that he's getting are like, "Oh, the woke mind virus," and Trump derangement syndrome, and all that sort of stuff. Like, all the sort of general dribbling idiot sort of rhetoric just being thrown at him. Despite the fact he makes good points, and he did a bit on this Hexa, pausing offensive cyber operations and stuff like that, and so many people, specifically adolescent and 20-something males, saying, "Oh, that's not how defense works. Like, we're just defending or anything." And I'm sitting there thinking, you do realize how unbelievably difficult it is to defend an ecosystem, just purely defend an ecosystem so incredibly broad because there's so many places that somebody could get in. Actually, part of good defense is taking out your opposition's infrastructure so they can't attack you. It's not outright attacking them, and taking down their stuff and taking down their actual critical national infrastructure, but taking down their servers, taking down their cyber apparatus that they use to attack you. That's the defensive piece. And just these reductive idiots coming in with like, no, purely defense is purely defense, and offense is purely offense. And it's like, there are no words. I mean, and they say it's the kind of content that it would really, really fit perfectly into confidently incorrect on Reddit.
And what I'll bring it back to, part of why I'm so tired. I stayed up to watch the fights last night. And one of the things that was really brought up was, I won't go into the whys and wherefores. We'll probably cover that on the 9 to 5 meeting tomorrow. But one of the biggest things is there was a person not considered like a very good stand-up fighter that kept like a world-class kickboxer honest through obviously like the threat of great grappling, but also the threat of enough feints, enough movement in the stand-up to keep that powerhouse kickboxer honest, right? So where does the line between offense and defense start blurring? Throw some feints and and an ounce of prevention, pound of cure type calculus. It's like it's geopolitics 101, not just cyber offense and defense 101, quite frankly. So I don't understand why everyone's clutching their pearls and forgetting, 500 years of history. You have to keep even your friends honest, or sometimes folks start getting weird, and definitely keep your adversaries or your frenemies honest, because if not, they'll march into Crimea and not stop.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, and it's just there. I'm thinking, like, to use your kind of like fight analogy, doing a sort of like a leg sweep on somebody and putting them on their ass and then not pummeling them whilst they're down. It looks like an offensive thing to take an action against somebody, but leg sweep and then go, right, just stay down. That's defensive thing. You could, I mean, if you want to make it offensive, you leg sweep, put them on their ass, and then you go out. Exactly.
Right? We'll go pride rules.
Yeah. But simply taking a small offensive action to nullify them, that is predominantly a defensive tactic, as far as I'm concerned.
Disrupt their timing, disrupt something. Again, keep them honest, and suddenly you're having a far greater time than if you just stood in front of somebody and covered up for 3, 5, 10 minutes, right? You're probably just going to catch an ass whooping, and it's not going to be fun for either party, quite frankly.
Yeah. People forget that rope-a-dope was the exception that proves the rule, not the actual.
And I dare
Muhammad
say,
Ali is about the only person who could have done that.
And then Muhammad Ali left the building early as a result of rope-a-dope. I'll be the first one to say that as well. I think that had a lot to do with, not to say that other forms of defense in a sport that aims to just hit you in the head repeatedly till you fall over is good for your brain health. But I don't think that helped, especially with the type of folks he was doing the rope-a-dope to. Bottom line, keep them honest, disrupt some timing. Not necessarily that you have to take out any assets, but just the threat of it, right? I mean, we saw it with nukes, for fuck's sake. Like, that shit works.
Yes. Speaking of brain health, some editorial or lack of editorial ability at the New York Post here. Yes, can't use the correct form of there. I'll get into this in a second. So Netflix users beware, there is a scam doing the rounds, an AI-powered scam doing the rounds that looks pretty much indistinguishable from the real deal, apparently. I'm really enjoying this from the New York Post, this cybernetic Trojan horse. I'm not sure it's quite cybernetic. I'm not sure that's the definition.
I want to say Isaac Asimov lives, right? We're bringing cybernetics back into modern newspaper parlance. Oh, I'm here for it, though. Let's go.
Yeah, cybernetics and an actual cyber attack, not the same thing. But
No.
they say the cybernetic Trojan
Not
horse,
at
which is
all.
making the rounds over the weekend, reportedly includes the subject line, "Let's tackle your payment details." It then informs users that their account, THEY''RE, it then informs the users that their account has been locked.
I mean, I am
Who
Job,
is
right? Shout
I
out
am
to Robin Williams.
Anyway, it then informs users that their account has been locked and that they need to update their payment details to regain access. What's interesting about this is that they get their wrong once, and then they get the other there when it's update their payment info. They get that one right.
Listen. All right. I just want to take a second to say our industry has made it. We're in the New York Post. All right. Like that's a layer of the zeitgeist that, I didn't think we'd hit in my lifetime, quite frankly. So I just want, shout out to the Post.
Fair,
Right.
fair enough.
Maybe employ an AI tool like Grammarly to help you out. Right. Even when you're, be very meta about your AI coverage.
Well,
help me help you. Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's get back to the topic at hand. This is the CyberDudes podcast, not the Grammarly Dudes podcast. Even though I do love ribbing an outlet of News Corp International for their horrific spelling and grammar. It goes on to say, your account is on hold. The advisory reads, please update your payment details. We're having some trouble with your current billing information. We'll try again, but in the meantime, you may want to update your payment details. Typical sort of situation. Then a link to a forged or impersonated payment details portal, and obviously it's a ruse to skim your credit card or bank account details. So if you're Netflix users, be wary of any of those unexpected emails coming from Netflix. If you do get, and to be fair, this does look pretty convincing, I will admit. All the formatting's there. It clearly wasn't written by the New York Post because all the spelling and grammar is correct.
Freaking shit! I love that. That's
the big kind of red flag on this one, and it's not even that big either. It doesn't address the user by name. It says "Hi dear," which is classic "Hello dear" sort of salutation on
me and my Netflix
phishing
account
emails.
Are pretty familiar with each other at this point. Right now, they know my wants and desires and what I like to watch for hours on end. Dear is okay.
That's lovely. What you do with your Netflix account is very much your business. We will move on.
This is America.
So, yeah. This is ridiculous. I mean, the big point here is that, and we're all too familiar with this. I think it's something that needs to continue to be put in front of the general populace. The malicious messaging campaigns have been around for a fair while, but the AI piece of this, and there's a different article that I'm not actually going to cover here, but there's a different the AI piece of this is what's really the real problem, because it lowers the barrier to entry for people who do want to get into scamming. It means that you do not have to be some sort of genius on Photoshop or Figma or whatever it is you use to do your graphical design. And also the LLMs can make the spelling, punctuation, and grammar something that New York Post editors aren't able to replicate.
LLMs are coming for our jobs, Robin. I heard it here first.
LLMs are definitely coming for the NYPD editor's job. So beware of the emails. Always go to the actual site itself and log in through that portal as opposed to using any link in an email. I would hope that in this day and age, any organization that is legitimately telling you that there is some payment details issue on your account would direct you to do the same, rather than have a button in the email asking you to log in that way. But best be safe than sorry. Okay.
Speaking of legitimate, sometimes it pays to go the legitimate route or to verify legitimacy. We have Microsoft, our friends at the Hacker News, telling us that Microsoft warns of malvertising campaign infecting over 1 million devices worldwide. This was near and dear to my heart. And it honestly probably kept me from illegally streaming the fights last night, right? I plopped down the money and said, you know what? Okay, let me go through ESPN. I'll throw Uncle Dana my hard-earned dollar bucks here. But you have the point of entry being, as I've mentioned, illegal streaming, pirated content, and iframes that, allegedly, I've never done this, but I hear that when you use some of these streams, there's a ton of adverts that obviously pop up, right? And embedded in those advertisements is the gateway drug to getting your shit took, essentially. Another layer of this that I found quite intriguing, 2 layers, was one, the malicious payloads are being sprinkled around and hosted on Microsoft's own platform, GitHub. So there's that right there, the malicious payloads. And I want to point out, and I'll kick it to you, there's like 5 or 6 stages to this attack. And I want to say each of those stages could have criminals that are very specialized in that stage of the attack. This is how complex and intricate these things are starting to get, because there's still gold in these hills. Robin, your take.
I mean, the fact that there's different levels of expertise at each stage, we've said this before about these things they are businesses with actual buildings and departments, and
this is a malicious supply chain. Like, if you look at this.
Yeah. Well, this is where we're now. It's having different departments for graphic design, and we've got communications, and we've got
sales,
business intelligence, and whatever, and ops and actual IT. There's also the aspects as well of like, oh, okay, well, we don't do this ourselves, so we'll go and subcontract to somebody else to get that. I think it's not surprising that these devices are getting compromised through illegal stream sites. You're already starting off at a place of criminality. Why would you expect the advertising that is on there to be legitimate and have any kind of like safety, like guardrails around it? It's no surprise that this form called malvertising is full of nasty crap, because at the end of the day,
so hold on,
they're not going to be watching for anything. Like,
wait a second, you're telling me that ad for low price Norwegian dick pills is not legitimate when I'm watching my cracked fight stream content? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely not. Give me a glimmer of hope.
I should cancel. I should cancel the order then. Oh no. Oh.
It's
shucks.
No, I mean, it's look, very much could be legitimate, could be similarly legitimate as the hot young singles in your area.
That's true, right? They always seem to be just one call away.
There's so many of them.
Damn.
And they're never in the bars. Anywho, so if you don't want your computer picking up similar sorts of nasties as you could pick up from the hot young singles, then don't be going on the don't be going on the illegal streaming sites. That's actually something that Andy says, isn't it? Our incident response head. Best way to get viruses is through illegal streaming. So pay for your content if you want a nice, clean, safe computer. Before we move on, Omar, are you tired of data brokers, seedy data brokers, grabbing all of your info from wherever they can, packaging it up, and then selling it on to advertisers?
I'm not only tired, I'm sick and tired, Robin.
As well as being sick and tired, do you lament how laborious and difficult it is to get those data brokers to delete your data and not sell it on?
I super lament that aspect.
You really lament this. Well, good news is you can have Discover Card make these requests for you, do the monitoring for the data brokers, a select set of data brokers, and put in the request to have the data deleted on your behalf, cutting down the amount of work that you have to do. And you get $100 for signing up with the card as well.
So it's protection and free money? What?
It's protection and free money. If you're interested in that, then you should go to our offer down in the show notes there, and you can bag yourself one of these Discover cards and the $100 bonus and the data broker data deletion service that they offer as part of that. And you'll be helping the show get better and better through investments that we can put into it. Anyway, enough of that. Americans need to be wary of Chinese-made internet routers, specifically those made by TP-Link. This story on nasty routers from Reuters talks about US Representative Raja Krishnamurthy has been answering questions at a news conference regarding these routers. This congressional committee last Wednesday urged Americans to remove Chinese-made wireless routers from their homes, including those made by TP-Link, calling them a security threat that opened the door for China to hack US critical infrastructure. Now, off the back of Salt Typhoon hacks last year, this seems not unfounded, but there is also the aspect of, is this maybe slightly overblown when being talked about in the context of your everyday person and not the people that the Chinese state is typically interested in going after? High-level government officials, diplomats, business people of note. What's your take on that?
No, it's not overblown because botnets are a real thing. And when we finally get into a land war in China, which is one of the classic blunders, so I'm positive we're going to go into it in the next 3 years. There's,
Really hope not.
I mean, but you know, once we jump that shark, I think that it's part of a concerted effort by portions of the Chinese government to set these staging situations for any payloads that they want to have. We saw this with Huawei and 5G in the UK, which flip flop, but I think finally got on the right side of that discussion. Australia, same thing. You just can't have a country that potentially, or a government that potentially has a vested interest in tripping you up. Maybe let's even take it away from the doom and gloom. Maybe they just want to tie our shoes and then they can win a race. Okay, right? Versus, complete utter destruction and cybernetic organisms marching down our doors and taking our freedoms away. Let's just say, hey, they want to start winning and stuff versus lagging behind or playing catch up. You can't have the backbone, your tech backbone, be built out by a country that is potentially at cross purposes. It just doesn't make any sense. I can say that while also then not being racist against Chinese people, right? Like I make the differentiation. So I don't think that there's any pearl clutching going on there. But yeah, I just don't think I like the conversation too, that this starts with examining where the hell your tech comes from and taking a harder look at that supply chain and that sourcing and making at least purposeful decisions versus, ooh, this is 50% off, so I'll grab it and then have it be my gateway to the internet. What's your take?
I think definitely with regard to the routers, it's a fair point. I mean, I also think that the scale of this is probably relatively limited in the US, given that most, or at least for the your end consumer, home consumer, given that most people who have an internet service will likely be provided a router by their ISP, be it Verizon or AT&T or Optimum, whoever that might be. So that's somewhere where it's limited. I don't think we're going to have millions of people feeling the need to throw out their internet router. What I do think is something that was worth focusing on is what other brands does TP-Link, what other products does TP-Link actually, because if you go searching for smart plugs and switches and Wi-Fi signal repeaters on Amazon, and you are gonna have a crap ton of TP-Link stuff or TP-Link adjacent brands advertised to you. And I have to admit, I found that there's a couple of things in my own home that are done this way. Now, I'm not for throwing out these connected switches and things like that because they cost me money. They're very useful and they do work, and I quite like them. But there are mitigations to put in to make sure that my information is not necessarily getting sprung, and that's principally splitting them out off onto a separate part of my network. These things go on the guest network or on the Internet of Things partition of the home network, not on the main stuff where all the important things go through. And there's not just for the, hey, this is Congress saying that there's inherent risk involved in these devices aspect to it. There's also the fact that lots of these end consumer IoT, Internet of Things, IoT devices are not as secured as your PC, your laptop, iPad, iPhone. From that perspective, there are security gaps that can be potential ways into your broader network. So that's something that's worth bearing in mind. I'm just trying to find a list of some of the things. So TP-Link produces cable modems, mobile phones, range extenders, routers, switches, IP cameras, print servers, wireless adapters, USB hubs, smart home devices. I know that they have the CASA, KASA line of smart switches. Again, the Wi-Fi repeaters are also there. There's smart light switches as well. So not just the it's actual wall switches for your wired in lights, not just your plug-in things that can be for your for your side table lamp and that sort of stuff. So those kinds of things, if you don't already have them split off on your network, make sure that you're splitting off those peripheral devices onto a guest or Internet of Things network. The US authorities are actually considering a ban on the sale of the company's routers as well, according to some media reports. Rob Joyce, who's the former director of cybersecurity at the NSA, told this committee on Wednesday that TP-Link devices exposed individuals to cyber intrusions that hackers could use to gain leverage to attack critical infrastructure. He said, "We all need to take action and replace those devices so they don't become the tools that are used in the attacks on the US." Again, I think for the average person, reasonably unlikely. I think businesses, government, utilities should not be using those kinds of devices. Even if there isn't a risk there, or a tangible risk, or the risk doesn't actually turn out to be real, the risk calculus of it is, it's better to be safe than sorry, I think, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure.
Especially now when CISA's gotten gutted, so we won't get the early warnings about certain things that we normally would depend on. So there's not even that layer of mitigation, right? So better safe than sorry, especially for that critical infrastructure that you shouted out, and any business that gives a shit about the data that flows through it.
Yeah. TP-Link said in a statement to Reuters that the hearing did not provide a shred of evidence the company was linked to China's government. No government has access to or control over the design and production of our routers. Any claims suggesting our products pose a unique risk to US national security are baseless and without merit, said Jeff Barney, president of TP-Link Systems Incorporated. Of course he would, but
do you smell that? I smell Kaspersky. Are you getting that flavor in the air?
A little bit. Yeah. The company did say that it's split with former China affiliate and now manufactures its routers in Vietnam.
Oh, so China's my ex-wife is what you're saying? Like, is what they're saying, at least? Like, it's not.
We're not going to go into that one. Exactly. No, let's not go into that one this week. Now, for those wondering about Chinese links, the biggest issue with Chinese links is always their national security law that says basically if you've got any stake with us, we can go grabbing you. You are obliged to give us whatever data that
it's always a joint venture,
or that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
As a matter of national security, and I think from this point of view, even if they no longer have links with their former Chinese affiliate, as they said, that doesn't necessarily mean that backdoors that were put into that equipment don't still exist, precisely for the purpose of rummaging around where hackers affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party shouldn't be rummaging around. Once again, this is one of those things that it's quite, he said, she said, it's very much on the basis of, until there's specific hard evidence, it's very difficult to make a determination one way or the other. It's very much a matter of risk calculus. Even when hard evidence alleged hard evidence does come up, it's very, in a post-truth world, it's very quickly discounted by people simply who say, oh, you can't trust that because reasons.
Rob Joyce is coming out and saying it. I'm going to listen. All right. And that's an 11-year veteran. How long you been in this game? And we can distinguish at least some of the voices that you at least stop and go, let me look at this. If XYZ is shouting this out. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. Okay. You got anything else, or you call it today?
I mean, we could add some links in here. I'll keep it really, really short. Schools and school systems are just getting got left, right, and center right now. So platforms for schools, Power School itself got, but then also there's another. Our friends at Recorded Future are talking about like the retirement plans now for the school administrators and teachers and whatnot. Just got. So I don't know what the hell's going on in that area of critical infrastructure. But
as we just talked about schools, I stumbled upon, and this is kind of like cyber adjacent on the misinformation sort of perspective, but I stumbled upon something the other day that had me absolutely spinning. Are you aware of the Tuttle twins?
Oh yeah. Yep.
This blew my mind. What an absolute egregious form of indoctrinating bullshit. For anybody who's not aware, the Tuttle Twins is a series of books intended for kids that are written by, I can only sort of assume, right wing with flavors of libertarian nut jobs, who think that it's only, how do I even phrase this? Who think that it's perfectly okay to do indoctrination of children when it's them doing it, but not when it's people who are pitching other points of view that they don't necessarily agree with. And the thing that really ground my gears, and I was reading about this morning, is one of their blog posts actually says something along the lines of talking about indoctrination as if it's a dirty word. It's like, yes, it is.
It's the very definition. It has a pejorative context if it's a similar process, but it doesn't have those overtones. You use a different fucking word. All right, that's the beauty of words and language. Shout out to the New York Post for butchering them left, right, and center this past week. But for God's sakes, then it's not indoctrination. That's the whole point of language, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely nuts. It's perfectly fine to teach these kinds of points as part of a balanced kind of curriculum that says, here's the way the right thinks about it, here's the way the left thinks about it, here's the way the people in the middle think about it. And
listen,
this
that's
is
not going to sell.
But not going to sell books.
Not going to sell books, Robin. And then the new head of the FBI has 3 kids' books going, all hail to King Donald. All right. We're in the wrong timeline. All right. And Terry Crews is going to be the next president of the United States. Idiocracy reference. Please educate yourselves, because that's where we're going.
Yeah. And the funny thing, these are pitched as books to people who want to homeschool their children and think that basically, the country's broken, education's broken. It's like, yeah, okay, education is progressively being more and more broken, but that's because the kind of folks who are drawn in by the lure of the Tuttle twins are the sorts of people who have been for decades progressively gutting education, and that's why it's so crappy. So yeah.
I mean, cue up the West Wing rant, right? Where schools should be cathedrals. It should be one of those things that costs the government a shit ton of money and is absolutely free to all of its citizens, et cetera, et cetera. Education's a silver bullet, whatnot. But I would be lying, right? That's my mental frame of reference. But I would be lying if I haven't considered homeschooling, because I don't know what the hell like the level of quality is going to be, right? And as you said, it's been a concerted effort. Now you have, I can't believe I'm going to say this sentence, right? You have Vince McMahon's wife running the Department of Education with the sole purpose of blowing that bitch up like it's, Fight Club 2, Electric Boogaloo, right? We got rid of the credit cards, peoples, and now we're gonna hit the schools, and then the ending scene is gonna be Linda McMahon and Vince holding hands and saying that they met each other at a weird point in their lives, and then all the schools are just blowing the fuck up. That's the timeline we're on, Robin. But I don't have an answer, because it's like, wait a second, Is one of the partners going to stay home and homeschool? Are we not? Do we go private school and then I got to get a like 6th and 7th job here? Like what what do you do? And then you get beautiful stuff like this. The artwork is very appealing, but that's how they draw you in, right? It's very light and airy, and
Precisely.
Yeah.
What really got me about this Instagram ad was they've got like a dude going, "Oh, here's why this is good," and that sort of stuff, and then they've got like an 8-year-old girl who's clearly just been needled her whole life with her parents' opinions on the way that the world works, not being allowed to form one by herself. Also, she's 8 years old. Let the kid be a fucking kid.
Listen, we live in a world where Gwen Stefani is now shilling for a Christian mindfulness prayer app on socials. What happened here? All right, we went from Jet Set Radio, hella good. We went from Tragic Kingdom. Now she's life is funny. Hit me in 20 years, and am I shilling for reverse mortgages? I don't know. I don't know if the check's good enough. What the hell what am I like? What's going on? But it's
what
weird.
Kind of a villain origin story do you need for that?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'd have to hate my brethren and my peers at that stage, right? Like, give your house away that you worked. Not no one in our age bracket got houses, but the 10 that did, right? Let's fuck it up. Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, let's call it a day for now. If you have enjoyed the show and our rants, please do like and subscribe. Otherwise, join us again next week when we have an interview with incident response expert Quinlan Barco and more news. That'll be an interesting edition.
We'll see what the next 7 days brings.
We'll see what the next 7 days brings. Yes,
we're in that stage of history. Like, oh
God, what's it going to be? In the meantime, stay cyber safe. Bye bye.
Adios.